What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and today we're looking at another dinosaurs list. That's like two in the last couple of weeks, but the patrons keep wanting to see them, and honestly, I'm really happy to bring this one to you because I guarantee this is very different from any other dinosaurs list you've ever seen. Let's check out Budget Jund Dinosaurs. Those are three words that don't usually go together, budget, Jund, dinosaurs. It just sounds weird coming out, but in any case, this deck is cool because it's got a lot of different dinosaurs that you don't see every day, and it's got more tricks up its sleeve than your average stupid, big, dumb dinosaurs list. It just looks to play like giant guys on curve. We've got a lot more going on than that, so hang out with me, chill right here on the couch, because I know that if you've been watching PT coverage this weekend, you're just about sick of Boros aggro. So if you wanted to see a deck other than red-white this weekend, then hang out with me. Let's check this stupid thing out. Let's go ahead and get down to it. Talk about the dinosaurs. I know why you came. I'm not going to waste too much time. So with that in mind, let's talk about the most important dinosaur in the deck. What could it possibly be? Well, it's actually, believe it or not, sounds crazy, 4 copies of Raging Regisaur. Of all things, I'm not going to pretend this is the best 4-drop in the format or anything. It's a 4-mana 4/4. It's at least decent, and it can deal an extra point of damage to the player when it swings in, or maybe it'll hit one of their Lawn War Elves or one of their white 1-drops or something, which, again, we're kind of seeing a lot of. So this is actually not a terrible ability to have when it attacks. We've also got at least one dinosaur with the Enrage mechanic, and Raging Regisaur works pretty well with it. But why is this card the most important dinosaur in the entire deck? Well, I'll take a pause for a second from talking about dinos to talk about the most important spell in the deck, maybe, and that is the 4 copies of Status Statue. You see what we're doing? You figured it out yet? Basically, whenever Regisaur attacks in, it's going to deal a point of damage to a target. And if we can just pay an extra mana and status it while that triggers on the stack, or just any time during that turn, really, then he just automatically kills whatever he deals a point of damage to, which is really good, but this is also just a decent combat trick. 1 mana for +1/+1 and Death Touch is actually a lot better in many different combat scenarios than you might think that it is. Plus, the card stapled to it is fine too. This is premium removal. It's kind of like a creeping mold that can hit creatures, instead of lands. Being able to hit artifacts and enchantments is actually great, especially enchantments. So you can free your creatures from under an Ixalan's Binding or Conclave Tribunal. You can kill a History of Benalia or an Experimental Frenzy. The ability to hit enchantments, super important right now, but if all else fails, this is just a straight-up creature removal spell, and you'll use it for that some of the time. Now, to make status just that little bit better, we're also playing 2 copies of, get this, Raging Swordtooth in the deck. Now, if you pay 6 mana, and 2 cards, it takes the Swordtooth and a status, then you'll wipe everything on the entire board. Sometimes that 6-mana sweeper will be exactly what you need. That's not the entire reason that we're playing Swordtooth, is to, hit status and just nuke the entire board, but that is an available option to the deck, and sometimes it'll be more than worth it. But otherwise, this is just the dinosaur version of a Goblin Chain Whirler. It costs a couple extra mana, but the body is freaking enormous. So just having a 5/5 is sometimes good enough by itself. But you know what else, besides just status, works really well with both of our raging dudes in this deck? Ripsaw Raptor, actually. Now, this is just a consideration for straight up any dinosaurs build that you're going to be brewing up, but in this deck, it's a little bit better, Again, almost no dinosaur decks, for the most part, are going to play Raging Regisaur or Raging Swordtooth, and this is just really good with either one of them. On curve with Swordtooth, you just play your Ripjaw, and then next turn, you'll get a 5/5 out of, Raging Swordtooth, and you'll get a drawn card, because this, got dealt the damage. Same thing with Raging Regisaur. If you don't have any good targets on the other side of the board to hit, you're not going to kill any of their creatures, and extra damage to them won't matter so much, then you can just draw a card by hitting your own Ripjaw Raptor with a Raging Regisaur. That's a pretty sweet play too. But also, in the 5-drop slot, we've got a little ramp suite here, so I wanted to play more than just a couple of 5-drops. We're going to play 4 whole copies of Charging Monstrosaur. Huge creature that can get in really quick. They can't actually chump block it, but even if it has to stay up and block, it blocks every single creature in those decks and just doesn't flinch. So Charging Monstrosaur, actually a fairly decent card right now, whether you're playing against a fast deck or a control deck. So I love Charging Monstrosaur. Yeah, again, you could play Regisaur Alpha, but this card has overperformed for a lot more people than just me. There are people kind of buzzing about Charging Monstrosaur since the beginning of the format, and for good reason. Now we are making room for a couple of 6-drops in the deck because, again, we're running a ramp package. We might as well. So we're playing a couple of copies of Tetsamok Primal Death. Definitely, this card's crazy. 6/6 Death Touch by itself. A pretty beefy body, yeah. But this can also just come down and just crush, 2, 3 creatures all at one time. Sometimes Tetsamok, depending on what else you did in the early game, is a 2 or 3 for 1, even if it just kills 1 creature, it's 2 for 1. So when it kills 2 or 3 guys, it's just an absolutely ludicrous card that almost wins you the game on the spot and is also good against a lot of these lower to the ground and even mid-range decks that we're seeing in the format right now. In a way, Tetsamok gives us like a bunch of 6-mana wraths in this deck, If we can hit the point in the game where we get to 6 mana, and again, we got a ramp package, we're doing it, then sometimes we can just reset the game and have a giant guy out. So, again, deck is a little bit swingy, and it relies on getting to the mid and later turns of the game, but once it does, it can turn the game around real quick, just in one card. Let's actually go back down the curve a little bit to finish off the dinosaurs, because I want to talk about Death's Gorge Scavenger for a second. You could play Thrashing Brontodon if you wanted to instead of this. They're both about $1.75, $2 right now, in that range. So one costs just as much as the other, but this lets us play a couple fewer green sources, and I think that's really important. Plus, it's got game against the Golgari decks and the Arclight Phoenix decks right now, so I actually don't think it's a bad choice, and it's just a big threat when you need one of those, which you do kind of often. Now, the rest of this deck, effectively, is the ramp package for all intents and purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the 4 copies of Drover of the Mighty, because it is the ramp card that I have the most to talk about, because we're not playing Llanowar Elves in this deck. You absolutely could, yes, but we've got way more 4-drops than we'd like to skip to on turn 3 than we have 3-drops that we'd like to skip to on turn 2. In that way, Drover and Llanowar Elves are kind of the same card in a lot of ways. It doesn't matter if we get Elves on turn 1 or Drover on turn 2. The results are just about the same because, again, 4-drops matter more than 3-drops in this deck. With that said, Llanowar Elves would die to our own Raging Swordtooth regardless of whether or not we statused it, I don't necessarily like that, so I didn't play Llanowar Elves. Again, you could. It's only like 10 cents a pop to play the card, and it's great. But I think that if you're only going to play 4, creature-based ramp cards, Drover is probably the better card in most ways. It doesn't die to Raging Swordtooth. And it's just good no matter what. If you've got any other dinosaur out, it's a 3/3, which is a pretty solid body in and of itself. That's going to start, blocking and trading with, or just killing creatures from aggro decks pretty much as soon as you have a dinosaur out. That's really what I like about Drover in this deck over a card like Llanowar Elves, is that it's going to have much more significance a little bit later in the game, Once Llanowar Elves' capacity as a ramp creature is done with, it's actually not that important, obviously. But Drover of the Mighty, when it stops being a ramp creature, is suddenly a potent attacker and blocker, so we'll play all 4 of that. And that's without even mentioning the fact that it gives us whatever color mana we want in a 3-color deck. That goes a long way, too. And so does Gift of Paradise, which I'm playing 4 copies of. I'm playing this instead of a 3-drop creature other than Death Gorge. But, some of these dinosaur decks would want to go, 3 or 4 Death Gorge and 3 or 4 Thrashing Brontodon. We don't necessarily have to do that, especially given that we have the option of nuking the board for 6 mana. With a Raging Swordtooth and a status. So, given that, I don't necessarily want to play so many creatures lower on the curve in this deck. Another reason I didn't play Llanowar Elves again. So instead, we're playing Gift of Paradise, which gives us a little bit more play against the, again, the lower to the ground, the fast aggro decks in the format. 3 life is a big deal, and ramping into a 5-drop, pretty big deal as well in this deck. We're also playing the full 4 of Thunderherd Migration, probably the most important ramp card for any dinosaurs deck right now. You will sometimes play this for 3 mana, but with nearly 20 dinosaurs in the deck, you'll almost never have to, And just like all of our other ramp cards, it gives us whatever color mana we want. We have 12 ramp cards in this deck that give us literally whatever color we might need at any given time, which gives us a lot of freedom in our mana base. But to finish the main deck off already, that seems really fast. We're going to play 3 copies of Commune with Dinosaurs, because why not? This isn't necessarily a ramp card, obviously, but on turn 1, as early as turn 1, this can help you, either get that 2nd or 3rd land that you need to get the game started and start ramping. Or, for that matter, it can help you get a dinosaur for a 2nd turn Thunderherd Migration. So, again, just really important to have this as early as turn 1, but sometimes it's great on turn 2, 3, 4. It's a drawn card for all intents and purposes, and you'll need that in this deck. We can't just have Ripsaw Raptor be the only thing that draws or filters cards. So it's important for that purpose. Helps us find the color lands that we need at any given time. So just for 1 mana, Commune is actually an incredible deal. Now we're playing 23 lands in this deck. That's 14 green sources, 12 red, and 9 black, which doesn't look like a whole lot because we got to play Tetsamok in this deck, but we've got until turn 5 or 6 to do it, and again, 12 different ramp cards that give us whatever color we want. So even if we look a little bit low on both red and black sources, we make up for it with our ramp cards. And here's the sideboard right here. This is the most simple sideboard in a very long time. We've got a full playset of Duress in there against control decks. Seems obvious. You just want to hold on the card long enough for you to read Duress if somehow you never have. But in any case, the rest of it is mostly against aggro. Although Fight with Fire does have some play in games 2 and 3 against control when they sideboard in their Lyra Dawnbringers. This is, Lyra's probably what this card is best against. But we also have the option of taking out nearly any other creature in the entire format for just 3 mana. And once the game goes long enough, we can just hit them for a 10 damage all at one time, and that goes really well with our ramp sweep. I don't have to tell you. So Fight with Fire is a definite playset as well in the sideboard because it covers a lot of bases for us. But there's also Lightning Strike. This could be Lava Coil if you wanted it to be, which has more play against Rekindling Phoenix, Shalai, a couple of cards. But Lightning Strike costs 1/10 of what Lava Coil does right now, and it takes out most of the important creatures that we care about taking out anyway. But you also see the Fiery Cannonade in there. This is a sweeper against the mono-white aggro decks, the mono-red aggro decks, the Boros decks, whatever, any combination of red and white that you might come across is going to be a fast aggro deck, and Fiery Cannonade is very, very important against those decks right now. Now here are your power rankings right here. Final score of 60 points. Not too bad, at least it hits 60. For a deck that's only about $75, $80 right now on TCG Player. Not really a bad price, and most of it is in the lands. Hold on, Ziggy wants to get down. There's really no talking to him when he gets like that. He's just inconsolable. But anyway, this deck might not have the meat of a more expensive Dinosaurs list, but the sauce. The sauce is delicious, Tricks with status and either of the Raging guys are just really fun to pull off, and I can't stress enough how decent a card is status is just by its own merits. Even if you're not doing something stupid with a Raging Dinosaur in this deck, then it can just be a decent combat trick in and of itself that also has a good removal piece stapled to it. So again, don't sleep on status. The card is more than fine. I was just going to say fine. The card is actually more than fine. But, even if you're not doing stupid tricks with it, we still have a decent curve, a reliable ramp package that gets us to big important cards like Tetsamok or Ripsaw Raptor, relatively fast. So, or Charging Monstersaur. Again, I can't stress enough how decent that card is as well. Even if it's only like 15 cents right now, it's still a haste, trample, giant body for a relatively competitive cost, and you don't want to sleep on it either. The deck is relatively budget, and again, plays a bunch of dinosaurs you don't see all the time, but give it a shot before you write it off. Not only does it have a decent fat curve full of big dudes that you can just play the deck that way if you wanted to, but it also has tricks. And if you want to play a dinosaur deck with tricks, you don't really have too many options, to be honest. Again, a lot of them are just kind of dumb, but this one has a few different things going on for it that can help you get either a long game advantage or just blow out a combat step or kill that guy out of nowhere when they didn't see it coming, draw a bunch of cards with Ripsaw Raptor in combination with our Raging guys. This deck has a lot going on compared to a lot of dinosaurs lists. So give this thing a shot, In paper, it's only about $75, and you've probably got most of the main deck pieces for it. And on Arena, it's only a few, rare wild cards to build this thing, especially if you tweak the mana base a little bit. It's a lot fewer rare wild cards to build this thing. So give this thing a try. It's a lot of fun. And again, it's got a lot of tricks that most people will see that you're playing big dinosaurs, but they'll have no idea what you're doing apart from that. So some of these can be really surprising tricks that can win you games, again, just out of nowhere. Press an advantage out of nowhere. So give this thing a try. It's only about $75 right now, and if you want to try it out, just click the first link in the description down there. That'll take you over to TCG Player. They help sponsor my content. They're good to me in that way, full disclosure, but they're also the cheapest place you're going to get this deck. Don't overpay for it. Don't pay $100 for this deck. Click the link in the description and pick up all the pieces you need from TCG Player. And while you're at it, there's a link in the description for the Patreon if you want to get over there and just throw me $1 of your hard-earned money per month. $1 over 30, 31 days. That's all I ask, and I'll let you vote on what decks you want to see next. That's how this crazy thing got put on the channel, so you can vote on what you want to see next, affect YouTube history in that way, and also for $1, I'll just let you know what videos, decks, lists, whatever are going to be coming out 24 hours in advance. So that's good to have too, just $1 a month. Get over there, hit the link in the description, and aside from that, take the time to like the video if you liked it, or even if you didn't. It's a low effort and helps me out. Maybe you didn't like the deck, but you're a fan of my content, so like the video. That helps. I care about it more than I let on, as well as hitting subscribe. I care about that too. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, now's the time to do it. You watch my content all the time. What's keeping you from just hitting subscribe? I know that like 50% or more of YouTube users don't ever subscribe to any channels. Change it. Just subscribe one time. Just one time. Subscribe for your boy. But aside from that, I'm pretty sure I'm tapped out for this one. If you got any, extra tech down there in the sideboard, cards I didn't play and really should have, or anything like that, let me know. I'm all ears. I read your comments. But pretty sure I'm done for this one. So I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Make sure you spread love and be kind.